side, but you need to exactly have the same function, which is f of x, right? But is it the same function? No, because you have a -1 here as opposed to +1. That's why it's neither. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Moving on to part B. We have 2x raised to the power of 4 plus 3x squared. So when you plug in -x, so same thing, raised to the power of 4 plus 3 times -x squared, you're going to see that you have even exponents, right? So what's the rule when your coefficient is negative, right? Or any number really, when you raise it to an even exponent, right? It's always going to be positive. Okay, so as an example, if you type in -2, right? We know that, let's just keep it as -1, just so it's simple. Okay, so this is -1. If you raise this to an even exponent, let's say 4, right? Type this into your calculator, you're going to get 1, right? So that means anytime you have a coefficient or a number raised to an even exponent, it's always going to be a positive number. So in that case, you're going to get exactly 2x raised to the power of 4 plus 3x squared, right? And as you can see, 2x raised to the power of 4 plus 3x squared is exactly the same g of x, right? To begin with. So therefore, since we know that g of -x is equal to g of x, we can say that our function is even. It's not too bad, right? All you really have to do is plug in your -x. Okay, so moving on to h of x, which is 1 over x cubed plus x raised to the power of 5. So here's the thing, because you have raised to the power of 5, it gets a little bit tricky, but you're going to do the same thing so it's the exact same thing as the other two that we did. So you're going to plug -x. So you're going to have h of -x, and that's equal to 1 over -x cubed, and this is going to be plus -x raised to the power of 5. Okay, there we go. So as a result, right, remember what I said about if you have a negative coefficient, you're raising it to an odd exponent. Therefore, the number would remain negative, right? So that's what we're going to do. So we have 1 over, this is going to be -x cubed, right? And then we have -x. Okay, so from there, we can take out this negative symbol or negative sign, right? Such that this is now going to be negative, right? And by the way, because you have 5 here, we can say that this is -1 raised to the power of 5. Because remember, you're taking the -1 out from an exponent of 5. So you need to make sure you have that 5 there. And then you can rewrite this as 1 over x cubed plus x, right? Raised to the power of 5. Okay, so there we have it. And then now you can see that, again, I've probably said this so many times now, but if you have a coefficient that is a negative number and you're raising that to an odd exponent, that means it becomes negative, right? So you're going to have this -1 here because of this odd exponent, and then you're going to have 1 over x cubed plus x raised to the power of 5. So as you can see, you have a negative sign out here. When you plug in h of -x, right? You're getting negative of h of x, which is an odd function, right? Because going back to this, what did we say? If it's an odd function, if you plug in -x in your function, if you have a negative sign and if you're getting the same exact function, which is f of x, you're going to have an odd function. Cool. Again, as a reminder, all of my sessions are recorded, so you don't have to quickly jot everything down. Just take a seat, take your calculator out, plug in the values, calculate them with me, and just pay attention. So for number 2, it says graph the following functions. You have y is equal to negative x times x minus 3 times x plus 4. Okay, so we're just going to do a recap with multiplicity and degree, and also the sign of your leading coefficient. So those are the three things you have to remember if you're graphing functions, and specifically they're polynomial functions, right? So this is a polynomial function. So first, let's identify three things as I mentioned. So if you're looking at this negative sign right here, that indicates that you have a negative leading coefficient, right? And you're probably wondering right now, what does the leading coefficient and its sign has to do with drawing or graphing the function, right? So if it's a negative leading coefficient, so we're going to have that right here. So leading coefficient. So if it's a negative leading coefficient, that means when you're graphing your function. So for example, if you're looking at a linear function, which is y is equal to x, say for example, versus y is equal to negative x. So we know that if you're graphing y is equal to x versus y is equal to negative x, if it's a linear function, that means your line is passing quadrant 3, right? Because this is quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4. Versus something like y is equal to negative x, which is quadrant